Hi there. This video is going to give you a quick overview of the QLM e-sourcing solution. Hopefully you're in the process of looking for an e-sourcing solution, and this video will give you an idea of what QLM e-sourcing can do for you, and hopefully you'll find that helpful in your search. QLM e-sourcing solution is delivered either in the cloud or on-premise according to customer requirements. It is available through a browser window, and in fact that would be all you would need to access the application would be the appropriate URL and then of course user ID and password to get into the application. So the main screen of the application of course sits on top of the database of RFQs that each organization carries, and each user is provided with the ability to set up specific views into that database that are most relevant to them. Those could be by ownership, they could be for certain customers or suppliers, they could have certain attributes from a spend management perspective, but whatever is important to the user, that user has the ability to configure this front dashboard to pull into the forefront the RFQs that are relevant to them. Of course, you can exclude based on status of RFQ, so I might exclude all my closed RFQs. I might exclude different commodities of which I'm not interested in. So whatever makes sense to me, I can configure this dashboard to reflect. And you can see that what the dashboard does is bring to the forefront a selection of RFQs that meet the criteria that I've specified. So I might have a list of 10 RFQs here, and within that I can start to do searches, I can do sorting, etc. Most importantly, I'm bringing to the forefront the RFQs that are most important to me and most relevant to me. As you can see, navigation within the app is completely point and click. It allows you a tabbed view of the application with a variety of tabs across here, which we'll look at here in a second. But all of these, as you can see, are links to deeper detail, including the action buttons here on the top right of the application. Each of the RFQs that are set up in the system are based on what we call a template. The templates are configurable and designed for specifically for each of our customers. They will carry colors, logos, data, both outbound data and inbound data according to those customer requirements. And so we don't limit that. There can be as much data or as simplistic data as required by our customers, and we build those templates specific for those customer requirements. The elements that are key for us and key to the process are of course the due date, so that's the date that we would require the supplier responses, or by which we would require the supplier responses. And you notice we do that by date and time as well. So we could have an RFQ event that ends at 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon if we so choose. We do automatic reminders for the suppliers, and that's a really key component in the way, one of the automation aspects of the application, where we relieve the buyers of having to go and see which suppliers have replied and which have not. We allow the system to do that automatically. And we set those reminder dates by the hour. So we say in this case, we're going to do it 48 and 6 hours before the quote is due. We also have the option to send reminders after the due date. Again, you have two options there as well. You can specify a number of hours after the due date and time to send out even more stringent notification to the suppliers. And then as well, we can do those ad hoc. So if we want at any point in the process to send a note to non-compliant suppliers, we can do that through our communications functionality. So those are the key aspects of the header. So the RFQ is structured within the application with a header that carries the main attributes of that RFQ, and then as well any number of line items that are sub to that header. And so as we move across the tabs, you'll see as we go to the lines, in this case I just have a couple of lines on this RFQ. There is no limit to the number of lines that you can have on an RFQ. We have customers that have literally in the thousands of line items on a single RFQ. You'll notice there are some sub-tabs here. Notes are internal notes that the users can use to communicate within the organization or set reminders on individual line items or RFQs. Those are for internal use. We also do attachments, of course. So if we have drawings or if we have items that we want to send along with the RFQ to the suppliers, we do that through attachments. Those attachments can be either traditional document attachments or they can as well be links back to network locations or Dropbox locations, etc., which is becoming more popular. In addition to configuring the header of the RFQ, the application gives you the capability to configure the line items, line item information. Once again, this line item is fairly simplistic. We have a part number, we have a description, we have a required amount. We also enter some specific attributes of the line item. Those attributes as well are configurable and designed by our customers to be representative of important and relevant information for our customers in determining the reporting attributes as well as the ability to select suppliers based on the requirements of each and every line item. The important thing to note is that everything you see here is configurable and everything will be configured to meet your requirements as we go through the process. So as I move through the tabs across the top, the next selection is the supplier selection piece. And this can often be one of the most challenging areas of any sourcing event where we need to find the appropriate suppliers for each and every line item on our RFQ. Within the QLM sourcing application, we do maintain a supplier database. And within that supplier database, we have the capability of categorizing. So I'll bring up quickly here one of our suppliers. And you'll notice that on the right-hand side here, we have a number of categories. These categories are user definable and allow you as a user organization to define each supplier based on their capabilities, based on where they are, how we want to treat them from a sourcing perspective. And so we start from scratch with categories and build those up with our customers, and then we configure the suppliers to have those the attributes that would apply to them. Also within the supplier master, there are configurable aspects. For example, we might want to do some document management and store a copy of a contract or a supplier profile within the application. That's entirely possible. We also can set expiry dates for dated documents so that we can have triggers to go back to our suppliers and ensure their compliance. But the supplier master is extremely configurable, as is the rest of the application, and many of our customers use that to store all sorts of information within the application. So jumping back to the supplier selection tab, as you'll notice, I have a couple of line items. I have a couple of key characteristics here. I've listed that both these line items must be sourced to a vendor that's on my approved supplier list. Also specify the material type. I have C01, which is plastics, C02, which is metals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the manual process first. So if I start to look for suppliers in my list, I might say, show me all my approved suppliers first. And there very quickly I get a list of all those suppliers that meet my approved supplier list. So now I've met my first categorization. I then might say, I also want to see who are my plastic suppliers, so my C01 suppliers. So what I've done now is gotten very quickly to 2 attributes, and I can do as many as I like. But in this case, I've got now a list of 9 suppliers, 10 suppliers that all meet the, or 9 suppliers that match both plastics and approved suppliers. So from there, I can choose the ones that I like. So I might say I'm going to choose 5 of these suppliers, and I'm going to go ahead and assign those to this first line item. So now you see that I now have 5 suppliers that have been assigned. I can drill down into that. I can see the 5 suppliers that were assigned to that line item based on the selection that I did. I'm going to check back here and I'm going to unassign those suppliers. So now you'll see I'm back to 0 and 0. What I'm going to do is a little bit more automated. So based on the fact that the system already knows that I need an ASL and I need a C01 and a C02, I'm just going to select my line items. And this is very helpful if you have a large number of line items. I'll just do an automatic assignment. So the system will go through the same lookups, just the same as I did by reviewing those categories, and then it will assign the appropriate suppliers. So in this case, I've got 9 suppliers that have been assigned to the first line, and then I've got 7 suppliers that have assigned to the second line. And then, of course, once I have those settings, I can still manage those simply by clicking unassign, or I could find new suppliers here in this selection as well to manage the actual suppliers that this is going to go out to. So once I've done my supplier assignment, as I say, that can be typically it can be a very challenging situation for sourcing events, particularly where I have multi-commodities on the same RFQ. I may need input from multiple individuals to figure out which suppliers each line item should go to. What we've done is we've simplified that by categorizing the suppliers, attaching those requirements to the line item, and then allowing you to very quickly and in an automated way finding the appropriate suppliers. The next step would be to actually issue the RFQ. We do that through the issue function, and you'll notice that what the system is going to do is start to configure the emails that are going outbound. So I've got all the outbound addresses, and then I can also see the attachments here at the bottom saying which attachments do we want to go out to those suppliers. I'm going to click next. And what the system will do now is actually populate the emails that are going out. We use essentially boilerplate text information that is pre-filled with supplier-specific information. So although the email is boilerplate, it is populated with specific information. So Allied Group is referred to as Allied Group, AZ Supplier is referred to as AZ Supplier, and so on. So the emails are populated and filled out for each supplier. You'll notice some of the suppliers are getting both of the attachments or all 3 of the attachments. Some will only get 2. They will all get the terms and conditions, which was attached at the header level, but only in fact, the drawing files will only go to those suppliers who are being asked to quote on those individual parts. So each supplier gets their own email, and we'll go ahead and issue. So what the system is going to do is it's going to populate a formal email for each of those suppliers. We'll send those out, and of course the system will now start to track those communications. And so for each email, we see exactly when it went out, the time of day, and of course who was the supplier that was receiving that email. I'm going to jump to the email side of things here as we proceed through the process. And we should start to see these emails come in. I'm going to act as if I am the supplier. There we go. We start to see the coming in. So I'll grab one of these. You'll notice I have an RFQ form. And I also have this here, terms and conditions. Here's my email, boilerplate template. The signature block, of course, is my signature. The email looks as if it came from me. Open the RFQ form itself. And now we can see the details that the supplier is going to submit. As I said, this is a very simplistic form, and there's not a lot of information being asked for. These forms can be as detailed, as complex as you might want them to be. In this case, I'm looking for an item weight. I'm looking for a quantity available. and I'm asking for a bid price. Okay, so you notice the form goes out from the sourcing company, and the supplier information, of course, is filled in with the supplier contact information. And in order to submit, all the supplier has to do is click on the action button in the bottom of the form, click to submit the quote. The red fields, or the fields outlined in red, are the ones that we consider to be mandatory, and each of those can be configured as well. If the supplier misses a field or has incorrect information in a field and they try and click to submit, they will get a message that the form is not going to be submitted. You can also do interesting things such as no quotes. If I select no quote, you'll notice I'm opening a new window called reason for no quote. So I'm asking the supplier to fill that in as well. I'm going to go ahead and do my submission. And the nice thing from a supplier perspective is there is no question about whether you got my quote or not. The splash screen in front of them will automatically tell them if they are successful. And this, of course, would have your organization's branding, colors, etc., even the message that you would like to send. But the benefit for the supplier is that they get instant feedback that their submission was received. And if I quickly jump back into the application, this is my communications tab, and as I refresh that page, I can see that that reply just came in. So as those replies come back in, they're automatically reflected in the application. You'll notice I now have one in the quote section, and I can click over there. This is what we call our quote cube, and you can see that there's the response from Allied Group, 25 cents going in as the bid from Allied. I can also expose that and show all the suppliers and all the fields that I'm asking for that individual part. We switch to the other part as well. There are multiple ways to look at those responses and to analyze and see the different responses that have been received from suppliers. We also have what's called a quote matrix, which gives you another level of segmentation and detail in reviewing those responses that come in from suppliers. The nice thing, as I mentioned earlier, for the supplier is there's no question whether their response was received or not. It's very quick for them to see that response. And in fact, in addition to the splash screen that they see, the minute they make their submission, they're going to get a confirmation. And so here is the confirmation that came back from the system. This happened while I was talking and looking at the application. This confirmation document shows the same as was in the original, but you'll notice it's now a confirmation and it's a closed document. From a supplier perspective, I have now received full confirmation that my quote was received. If I wanted to adjust my quote, I can just go back into this section, and I might say update my bid price at some later point, and I can just submit again. So suppliers can submit as many times as they care to within the life cycle of the RFQ. Jump back to my quote, and you'll see I now have another reply. So I get a different confirmation number. If I need to see exactly what the supplier has submitted, I can click on the magnifying glass, and that will present exactly what the supplier had submitted. Finally, what I can do within the application is select a source. So although I haven't received submissions for each of these, I'm going to go ahead and select it. You notice I click on it, puts a check mark next to it. There's also an automatic selection, which will go through all the submissions and find the best submission from all the suppliers. And then what I can do is do an award notification. By clicking on the notifications area, I'm going to do an award, and I will process that through. You'll notice it's got the part number that has been awarded. It's ignored the second part, but this is going to go ahead and assign that part, assign the award to that Allied Group supplier based on their submission. Go ahead and click next as well. A boilerplate message that says, gives some indication of the supplier to the supplier what they should do. And then again, tracked in the confirmation, the award action. Right, so that's the basic process from start to finish. At any point in time, you do have the capability of pulling information out of the application. You'll notice there is a CSV export here at the top. A lot of companies will pull more detailed information out for deeper analysis. This will take whatever is found within the query out into a spreadsheet format. We also have automated load features where we can pull data in from a spreadsheet. So if your customer or your internal customer provides you with information in a bill of material format or whatever from within a spreadsheet, that spreadsheet can go directly into the application to initialize the e-RFQ event. So that's again the high-level overview. There is considerably more to the application than what I've shown you today, but I hope this gives you a quick overview of the ease and simplicity of use, but both on the buyer side as well as the supplier side. So key things to remember: very configurable, very user-friendly, and also no requirements on the supplier side. So a supplier does not need to log into a portal or remember a user ID or password, or perhaps lose that password and require you to reset it for them. All they need is an email address and an Adobe Reader, which is a free application, as we all are aware. So that's the video for today. Hope that was helpful, and please stop by our website, www.qstrat.com, if you have any if you want any more information, or please give me a call directly. John Dickey is my name, 734-358-5215. Thanks again.